You Christina?
Yes.
We have a shocking update to a case of a married high school special ed teacher and soccer coach accused of having sex with a student. Christina Formella is now facing 52 more charges in connection to her alleged sex acts with an underage student, and her husband appears to be standing by her side. We're on the case, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Chris Stewart. Now let's get to the story that we have been following outside of Chicago, where Christina Formella was arrested in March and she was accused of having sex with a teenage student. Now, she said that the student had taken her phone, that he had tried to set her up by sending text messages between the two phones, making it seem like they were having a sexual relationship. But now, prosecutors have the receipts that show that this story allegedly goes far beyond what we first thought. Formella was in court this week in DuPage County, Illinois, outside of Chicago, and her husband was by her side. She kept her head forward, going into a hearing where she would be arraigned on 52 new charges of sex crimes with a teenage student. Before I get to the proof that prosecutors say they have to back up those new charges, let's get to the body cam video of Formella, a high school teacher and a soccer coach who was arrested in March.
Hey, how you doing?
Hi.
Officer Guzman with Downers Grove. Do you have your license on you?
Yes. Tonight.
Yeah, I'm gonna explain. I'm sure you're confused. I'll explain everything to you. You Christina?
Yes.
Okay, Christina, do me a favor. Can you step out of the car for me? I know you're confused. I'll explain everything to you. You don't have anything on you? You can just grab whatever you need.
Whatever I need.
Yeah, whatever you need. Like your phone, your purse, go ahead and grab it.
Is she going somewhere? Or?
Yeah, we're gonna explain everything to you guys. Go ahead and grab it. We're not going anywhere right now. Yeah, of course, yeah.
I don't understand what's going on here.
I get it, yeah. You can go grab your things.
Can he come with me?
Yes. You stay there for right now, sir. Just stay there, but yes, you can. But come on back here.
Should I shut the car off?
Oh, yeah. Go ahead. Goes off. Okay. Let's right back over here. So, we do have an investigation going on. We have to talk to you about it at the police department, okay? So we're going to explain everything to you there. It's not my investigation. I don't know the full details. We do have to bring you there, though, okay? So I do have to put you in handcuffs and bring you to the police department. Just a Downers Grove.
Handcuffs?
Yes, unfortunately, yes.
I'm like willing to go with you.
I get it, yeah. Unfortunately, we have to do it that way. So do me a favor. We just take this off.
Can I ask you
Of course, yeah. It's not, like I said, it's not my investigation. Obviously, we're here for a reason. So go ahead and turn around for me. So right now you're just being detained, and there is a detective that needs to talk to you at the police department. So we'll let your husband know. He can just come to the police department as well if he wants to wait for you there.
I'm like...
I get it. You have a lot of questions.
So scared.
Yeah, everything's okay. We just need to talk to you at the police department. That's all. Nothing else on your pocket right now? Anything else?
Just my phone.
Just your phone?
Here.
Okay. Okay. All right, we're going to sit in the back of this car. On the other side, once you get to the police department, you'll talk to the detective and he'll explain everything to you.
But you can't even give me like an idea
At the moment,
as to what this is about?
Other than that it's an investigation, that's all I can really tell you right now. I'm sorry. I wish I could tell you more.
Is he coming with me?
We'll let him know right now.
Formella, as you can see there, seemed confused and shocked that police were taking her away. This is video of her in the rear of the police car being taken to the station. Before we get back to this episode from On the Case, I want to bring you a Law&Crime legal alert, because if you received a Depo-Provera birth control shot and were later diagnosed with a brain or a spinal tumor called meningioma, you may be eligible for a lawsuit. Our partners at Morgan & Morgan are investigating claims that patients weren't properly warned about this risk. It's free to check, takes just a few minutes, and you don't pay unless they win. So scan the QR code on your screen or click the link in the description to this video. You can also go to www.forthepeople.com/LCDEPO to see if you qualify.
Excuse me, is my husband coming with?
Yes, yeah, he's taking his phone number down. We're staying in touch with him. We're just going to Downers Grove, so 10 minutes away.
No, I know, but I really would prefer that my husband's with me.
Of course.
Am I in trouble? Like, I'm so lost right now.
I'm sure you are. Like I said, I can't answer any questions right now. Just to tell you that right now you're being detained for an investigation and we're bringing you to the police department. And once you get there, they're going to fill you in on everything.
But once she got to that police station, detectives laid out their case that this teacher, this wife, this soccer coach was accused of having sex with an underage student. And just take a look at how she reacted.
I'm just going to put your seatbelt on, right? Unless you're able to reach it down there. Alright, sure you don't want a tissue or something?
I feel like I'm gonna throw up.
You want a bag?
Yes, please.
Alright. Shauna, can you grab like a bag out of there?
Possibly I can driver. No complaints tonight though.
Hey, can you get like a bag just in case she gets nauseous?
Yeah.
I don't know, do we have any of those MSS bags like laying around the farm? I figure something better than nothing. Or here, if you stay with her, I'll go grab it.
Oh my god. What the f?
Just kind of put it on the floor here, alright?
Okay.
A few paper towels on the floor here if you need it, alright?
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah. Yep.
What's up? Oh, I don't know. Try the very first one. Oh, the fourth one?
But frankly, what she was accused of in March in that body cam video pales in comparison to what she is now being accused of by prosecutors. Let's start with the original charges. In March, Formella was charged with 2 counts of sexual abuse and criminal sexual assault. This story came about when a now 17-year-old boy and his mom filed a report saying that the boy had sex with Formella when he was 15 years old in 2023 and he was one of her students. The boy told police that he and Formella had sex just once in her classroom during a tutoring session. Now again, there's much more to this alleged story now. The boy's mom found out about this alleged relationship when she ordered her son a new phone after his original phone had broke. She went into his iCloud account and found very graphic messages allegedly between Formella, the teacher, and her son. And here are a couple of those text messages. The woman's son, the victim in this case, wrote, quote, "I love you so, so much, mama." And an unknown number texted back, and that is who prosecutors say is the teacher, Christina Formella. She says, quote, "I love you so much, baby. Even though this morning was short, it was perfect." Formella also allegedly texted, "I love having sex with you," and the teen responded allegedly, "I know, baby. I love it so much. It feels so good. It's so passionate. It's so intimate. It's so perfect." Police also looked at Formella's phone and allegedly found long entries in her notes section where she is talking about not just having sex with the student, but allegedly considering him her boyfriend. Quote, "I'm not upset. I'm not mad," Formella allegedly wrote. "I'm not any of that. I've just lost interest. I went back and screenshotted every single time that I said we should break up until after the wedding and after you graduated, and every single effing time you came back and convinced me it would be fine. I initiated every single breakup only for you to end things saying you couldn't get over it. You ruined us. I warned you. We should have never started dating a long effing me ago, and you gaslit me and convinced me it was fine every single time, be that's who you are. We will never ever be together again. I'm not a second choice. I'm the best thing you'll ever have, even with all of my mistakes. You, once again, waited and strung me along until it was convenient for you. It broke me last time. This time, it changed me. I'm not sad. I'm effing mad that I let a 16-year-old F-word with me like that, and I made a promise to myself that I never will let any guy F-word with me like that again. In March, police say Formella accused the teen of setting her up. She claimed that he took her phone during that tutoring session and wrote all of what we just went through when she wasn't looking. He even, she says, sent text messages between the two phones to make it seem like they were talking about sex. She also claimed that she was the target because she's, quote, good looking. But then comes this week, and this story went to a whole new level. Formella was arraigned on 52 new charges. And this is what we know about what prosecutors said in court in DuPage County, Illinois. This is according to local outlet, the Daily Herald. Prosecutors said that Formella allegedly didn't just have sex with the student once, she had sexual activity at least 45 times with this student. They say that she had sex with the student not just at school, they had sex at her house, which isn't far from the school, and they allegedly did it during school hours. Also, this relationship allegedly started when the teen was 14 years old, not 15 like we first thought, and they reportedly had this contact for roughly 2 years, and that is way longer than what we first thought. So how do investigators know this? How did they find out these new details? Well, according to prosecutors, they had a second interview with the teenage victim. They also apparently have way more text messages than we first thought. Hundreds, if not thousands, between the two. And they say these text messages show that Formella even texted the teenager when she was with her husband in Italy. Now, social media shows that she and her husband got married in August of last year, 2024. And he does appear to be standing by his wife's side. He walked with her into the courthouse this week for her arraignment on these new charges. The teenager allegedly told law enforcement in the second interview that the sexual abuse with Formella continued to September of 2024, and that would have been after Formella married her husband.
No, I know, but I really would prefer that my husband's with me.
Of course.
Prosecutors say Formella told the boy that she didn't intend to marry her now husband because he was having an affair and she was going to get millions of dollars if their marriage came to an end. Prosecutors have said that they don't believe her husband knew about the relationship that Formella allegedly had with this teenage victim. Here are the new charges Formella is facing: 20 counts of aggravated criminal sexual assault, 20 counts of aggravated criminal sex abuse, 6 counts of indecent solicitation of a child, and 6 counts of grooming.
I do have to put you in handcuffs and bring you to the police department. Just a downers road.
Handcuffs?
Yes, unfortunately, yes.
I'm like willing to go with you.
I get it, yeah. Unfortunately, we have to do it that way.
A grand jury indicted Formella on these charges in May, but it just came to light this week when the new charges were unsealed. Formella is also still out on bail, and that's a point of debate because prosecutors tried to have her detained, but the judge opted for her to be put on GPS monitoring to stay away from the teenager and the school, and they also have put software on her devices to track her activity online. Join us now to talk more about this case is Ohio Special Prosecutor and former Deputy Attorney General Mark Weaver. Thank you for taking the time, as always, to join us on Law and Crime. This story, it seemed to be taken to a new level with these new charges that Christina Formella is facing. How serious are these new charges? How does it compare to the charges he was facing previously?
Yeah, I was really surprised when they unsealed all these new counts. It appears as though this was not a one-off. This was many dozens of incidences of sex between this adult and this child in her house, at the school. Every one of these is enough to qualify for her to go to prison and certainly be a registered sex offender. Put them all together and she could spend the rest of her life in prison.
Because originally it was when she was arrested in April, and it was late March she was charged. I guess we learned about it in April. It happened at school. She argued that this teenager, who we thought was 15, but apparently this relationship allegedly went to when he was 14, that he had broken into her phone, he set her up, he was the one sending all these text messages. But you look at what prosecutors lay out, where apparently she was sending text messages, they say, when she was on vacation with her husband in Italy. How much does this new evidence carve into the defense that she apparently gave police when she was arrested?
I'm not here to say that prosecutors are always right. I am here to say that defendants come up with the most ridiculous excuses when they're confronted with clear evidence against them. And she must have been backpedaling in her head. How can I explain away this evidence that they're presenting in front of me? Now, she knows that she had other instances of sex with this child, but I guess she's hoping against hope that there won't be any other evidence of it. Let's remember, anybody who has a cell phone, anybody who uses iCloud or any other backup service forgets that nearly every interaction is preserved, protected, in the cloud, in the backups, easy to find. Prosecutions for this sort of crime 50 years ago, before you and I were around doing this sort of stuff, must have been much harder because it was all eyewitness stuff. He said, she said. But in an era where everything we do is logged and backed up to the cloud, evidence of these crimes is just so much easier to prove.
How damning is it for her defense, if you were her defense attorney, that she made those statements that this was a one-off, he set me up, when prosecutors now are laying out that they have a lot of evidence that this was far more than that?
What I've seen prosecuting cases like this is that there are certain kinds of offenders who think they can talk their way out of anything, which is usually pretty dumb. I'm not a defense lawyer, I prosecute, but it's usually why defense lawyers tell their clients to shut up, because they know that other evidence is coming. There's a process called discovery where each side gets to see the other side's evidence. So the defense lawyer wants to wait to see all the evidence against her, and then they can come up with whatever their defense is at trial. But I think she thought she was able to talk herself out of this, and she said some things that are going to come back to haunt her should this case go to trial.
Right. How big of a deal is it that this actually happened when this student allegedly was 14 years old compared to what we first thought, which was 15?
Yeah, these are all felonies, somewhat driven by the age, but also driven by the fact that the law puts special obligations on teachers to not have sexual interactions with their students. Even if he were older, it would still be a crime because we expect teachers to not do this. And so there are so many felonies here that the defense lawyer is almost certainly coming to the prosecutor and saying, please, can't we work this out in some way where this woman will be able to be free, maybe in her 50s or 60s. I think she's 30 now.
Yeah.
So it's unlikely any outcome, absent some crazy twist that we don't know about, it's unlikely that any outcome is going to result that won't keep her in prison until she's nearly a senior citizen.
And I want to talk a little bit about her bond because she's out right now. They did add with these new charges when she was arraigned on those earlier this week. She's wearing a GPS monitor. She can't go near the victim. There's a new software on her computer to track what she's doing online. But she's accused of having sex with a young teenager 45 times, sexual acts 45 times. It was in school. It was at her home. It was at her home during school hours. I mean, this is not a small case of a teacher, and not that it's ever acceptable, but crossing the line once. I mean, these are serious charges, 6 counts of grooming she's facing. Why is she out on bond?
It's very troubling. This is a reminder that where you choose to live, you subject yourself to the laws of that state. And in Illinois, in 2023, they changed the law. There's no cash bond. A judge cannot order a cash bond for any defendant in any case. And the presumption is that the person should not be held pre-trial. This was passed after the summer of George Floyd and some of the hysterical allegations against law enforcement that were made following that. My concern is less that she's a threat to the public. I think that's unlikely. Don't get me wrong. She's a bad person and needs to go to prison for a long time. But I don't think that in her free time, she's looking for 14-year-olds to go have sex with. The threat here is, since she's facing an essential life in prison sentence, the threat is she leaves. She cuts off the monitor. She heads to Central America. She never heard from again. She has every incentive to flee. This judge said that there wasn't clear and convincing evidence to be able to detain her. I think the judge made a mistake.
How much does, because I know part of the reasoning for the judge in only adding the GPS monitor and the software to her computer was, what's new in this case compared to when she was first arrested back in March? How much does the decision in March factor into whether you can take someone into pretrial confinement, as opposed to looking at this? I mean, you look at it, I mean, it's just shocking the new level that this story has been brought to with what prosecutors have. And I know the defense was saying, well, we already knew all this was already out there and all this and all that. I mean, I think that there's a pretty strong argument that this is a completely different story than what we were first dealing with when it was first uncovered back in April and March.
It's true. Every single instance of sex with this child is its own felony with 4 or 5 years in prison. Start adding them together. A judge doesn't have to run the sentences consecutively, but she could. Start adding them together, and it looks like a life sentence. This creates a strong likelihood of her fleeing from justice. This law is so pernicious. The notion that every crime is presumed to be one where the defendant is free the next day after he's arrested. Every crime has that presumption. And that the prosecutor, they call them state's attorneys in Illinois, has to file a special motion and ask for a special hearing in the hope that he can overcome by clear and convincing evidence that somehow this defendant has no other way of being kept from fleeing other than prison. And the judge even lamented from the bench that the law was handcuffing her. It's a bad law. Illinoisans ought to petition their legislators to get it changed. And this is just the latest example of how it hurts people.
Because I know the other argument is, she's, we have a GPS monitor on her, so we know that she's not going near the alleged victim. I think when you look at this, dozens of times that they've had some sort of sex act, according to prosecutors. There are these text messages, which if you've read those are over the top, to say the least, and explicit. She talked about not wanting to marry her husband and she would divorce him and get millions of dollars. So apparently she's got resources as well. Why not look at this and say that this is someone who does want to be close to this victim and should be in bars ahead of trial to protect the victim in this case?
I think that's a fair argument too. Again, most of us look at this from our own common sense perspective, like, wow, if that happened to me, I would never go contact the alleged victim. But she's a megalomaniac. Her statements suggest that she's a megalomaniac. Somebody who does these things already has impaired judgment. So you make a fair point. She's likely to approach him because, quote unquote, they're in love, or because she'd like to shut him up, either or. That's one reason why she should be pretrial detained. The other one that I mentioned is she has a very high incentive to flee the country to get away from this potential life sentence.
For as many charges as she's facing, these were 52 new charges. Just again, running through them, arraigned on 20 counts of aggravated criminal sexual assault. You have aggravated criminal sex abuse, indecent solicitation of a child, and then 6 counts of grooming. If this was to go to trial, how is this tried where you're able, as a prosecutor, to prove every single point and lay it out clearly for a jury?
Well, you have the electronic evidence, right? And so everyone focuses on the victim's testimony. That's certainly going to be the case. As a prosecutor, when I do sex cases, I would rather not have my child victims testify. They've already been abused by the offender, and I hate to re-victimize them by putting on the stand. We have ways of presenting the evidence without calling the victim. I think in this case, they're going to have to call him, but certainly the electronic evidence, how graphic it is, how specific it is. There's really no other explanation for what was going on other than these charges. I frankly will be shocked if this goes to trial. I think there will be some agreement of a plea agreement that will allow her to get out. Again, as I said, maybe when she's in her 50s or 60s, and be a registered sex offender for the rest of her life. Prosecutors feel a strong influence to not put victims on the stand unnecessarily.
What's the timeline potentially for a deal to be reached or a trial in a case like this where, so she's been arraigned on these new counts yesterday, which is Tuesday at the time we're recording this. What does the timeline look like in this playing out?
Well, the next hearing is August 4th. I expect there'll be some potential plea negotiations between now and then. There's a speedy trial clock that the state has to meet, which means she has to be brought to trial within a certain amount of time to protect her speedy trial rights under the U.S. Constitution. But when the defense makes request for discovery or files any motion, sometimes that tolls or pauses that clock. Long story short, the defense lawyer is going to try to find a way to keep her from going to prison for life. That's the only way out, unless there's been some mistake in the police work, some corruption. We saw this in the Rust case with Alec Baldwin, where he shot that director and killed her. And he was pretty clearly at fault for doing it. But because there was some last-minute allegation that the prosecution had been unfair, the case was dismissed. So occasionally you have a bolt out of the blue where something goes wrong in a case, which is why prosecutors have to present their cases carefully. So presuming the prosecution has its case airtight, this will resolve in a plea agreement that will allow her to serve 25, 35 years before she gets out.
If she still goes with the "my phone was hacked" argument, if she was sending text messages from Italy, I presume prosecutors, you'd be able to get the location data of that to be able to show that it was not being sent from a student's classroom, but across the world.
Yeah, this goes back to my previous point that all the things we do with our phones are logged. Where we are, what browser we use, what time it was, who it was sent to. So she's going to be fighting all of that electronic evidence. She's going to be fighting the boy's story about what happened, and she's going to have to try to present this with a straight face. I don't think jurors are going to buy it. Not in DuPage County. DuPage County is exurban, suburban Chicago, a little more conservative jurisdiction than Cook County, which is where Chicago is. I'd be surprised if jurors in DuPage County bought that.
And then, Mark, you try these cases, and I've talked about a lot of cases on my show that are teachers that, and it's putting it lightly to say they cross the line, but they groom kids, they have sex with children, and that's what the allegations we're dealing with here. In your experience, why does this happen, and why does it seem to happen so often?
It's happening more than it probably did 50 or 75 years ago because teachers and students now interact outside of the school setting via social media and other digital means. So used to be, before all of this technology, you might bump into your teacher when you're out at the grocery store, right? But you'd be with your parents or whatever. And the notion of seeing your teacher outside of school is very unusual. Now, following your teacher on Instagram or texting her on Snapchat or other sort of digital means are so easy to do and so easy to be away from the gaze of parents. Parents would not know about it. And we're in an over-sexualized culture. One of the cases I prosecuted recently where a wrestling coach and his wife were having sex with many of the students, some as young as 13 on the wrestling coach. It was the wife having the sex and the husband putting her up to it. In that case, I filed a motion with the court asking for a long sentence. And I pointed to the many instances in movies, TV shows, and songs where it's celebrated when a young boy has sex with a teacher. Somehow that's exciting, that's wonderful, that's something young boys should look up to. It's not. It's a sex crime. It's horrible. And our culture sadly celebrates a young boy having sex with a student in a way that we don't when the roles are reversed.
And then lastly, Mark, I think of that, what you just said, and it's kind of the elephant in the room, I think, in this story is if Christina Formella was 65 years old or a man and was accused of these types of crimes, would this case be prosecuted differently? I mean, she is a 30-year-old. You typically don't see, I feel like, cases like this where it's a little bit more shocking based on her background, her age, she's married, as opposed to being your stereotypical kind of creeper that we see in a lot of these stories.
Yeah, I don't think it'd be prosecuted differently, but it might be viewed differently, right? People do have a mental image of what a sexual predator looks like, and it's often well out of sync with the truth. But she's younger, she's attractive, the students must think she's cool, to have a student who's that age think that she was interested in him. That makes people view it a little differently. And she's quoted as saying somewhere that she can get away with things because she's attractive.
Right.
If she were to take the stand, that would come out in cross-examination. Any statement she's made can be used against her as long as it was gotten properly, which I think it was. And so people do look at these cases differently because they see somebody like her and they don't think of a sex offender, but the evidence says otherwise.
Yeah, it is a shocking case that got even more shocking this week. Mark Weaver, it's always great to have you on Law and Crime. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
That will do it for On the Case, presented by Law and Crime. Subscribe to us on YouTube and Spotify. I'm Chris Stewart. We'll see you next time.